Walter Russell was very influential to me after I had awakened. I was moving into these topics of oneness, and a couple of his writings that I was fortunate enough to come across, The Universal One and The Secret of Light is the other one, dives into some of these topics in an interesting from an interesting perspective. And it just resonates so deeply and makes so much sense. So I wanted to bring some of that forward for you guys. Walter Russell was born in the 1800s and he died in 1963, I believe. But he was obviously connected to source consciousness because the information he brought forward was just so powerful, so relatable, and resonated deeply with a lot of the same information or knowing that I was connecting with after I awakened. Notions of gravity, the universe as a whole, the sun, the planets, space, things of that nature. So I wanted to just dive into a little bit of some of these topics in this video. And if this resonates with you guys, I would love to very much get into some more of these. I'm catching back up on the readings. Haven't looked at it in a few years, got back into it today, started reading, and boom, obviously see things from a different perspective now than I did from a couple of years ago. But very, very fascinating. So if we want to look at what Walter Russell brings forward, he brings forward the concept of the universal oneness or universal mind, which is just this all-knowing. We call it source consciousness. It just is, and everything births out of that. Okay, there is no motion in this universal mind. It is just pure stillness. It just exists, and it's always existed. There is no time or space. It just is. And now we have this physical universe, which is a universe that is created by electricity. And our thinking mind can kind of manipulate that electricity and essentially draw from that stillness, that universal field, and bring information forward to be represented in this physical universe. So everything we experience in this physical universe is really an interpretation of the all-knowing source, God-like power, however you want to call it, the source consciousness. This is a representation of that. This is not it, because it is complete stillness. It is everything. This is a universe of motion. And because this is a universe of motion, we could take that knowing and that knowledge, and we could place representations of it in this universe to be perceived with our five senses. Again, that is not the actual knowledge. It is just a thought form representation of it. And that is a very critical distinction. That is according to Walter Russell. And that resonates deeply. Think of it this way. When we look at an ocean, let's say the ocean is completely still and flat, right? We don't have any real way to measure it, okay? We just see this stillness lying there, and everything is encompassed within that stillness. Now, when a wave appears on that ocean, or two waves appear on that ocean, now we have a way to measure it, right? We have a way to actually perceive it, okay? Outside of its stillness. Now it's in motion. It is moving, and our five senses can connect with that and perceive it. So what Walter talks about is how when we live our lives through our five senses, we are doing ourselves a very solid disservice. We are living and creating based upon what our memories and what our conditioning thinks, okay, that programming, okay? We are not connecting inside to the stillness, to the universal mind, to the God source, to our power, unlimited power. We are all fractal representations of that power. When we are living through our five senses, we are not bringing forward that knowledge. And when that happens, we're living off of memory and conditioning, and humanity as a collective consciousness kind of gets stuck at a certain level, okay? When we go through an awakening, and that's what's happening now, more and more people are going through an awakening, we are able to center and find that stillness. And when we can get into that stillness and completely separate and detach from our senses, we get back into that stillness of that ocean. and we could reconnect with that information, that knowing, the knowing of who we are source. And when we can align with that, we could start to bring that forward, and that could direct our thought form and affect what manifests in this reality. That's what inventors like Nikola Tesla and Albert Einstein, to some extent, was able to do as well. They were tapping into this source consciousness. Now, Einstein was a lot more scientific and worked a lot from the left brain and had elements of tapping into this to bring forward certain concepts. Tesla was, in my opinion, a lot more connected to source consciousness and brought forward more of that information as thought forms into this reality. So when we could tap into that, the evolution of humanity starts to expand, consciousness starts to expand, and we evolve. When we don't tap into that, we're working completely off of what mathematics and science will show us. We're working completely off the left brain and trying to figure things out from a very limited state of consciousness. So tapping in allows that knowing to connect up and come forward, because then we could start to utilize that and put it into practice here. And just like that ocean where the waves appear, we could create waves in this reality, these electromagnetic waves. Another interesting thing, amazing, fascinating thing that Walter Russell talks about is how we are the sun. Essentially, we are in the sun. Everything we are experiencing is in the sun. Think of it this way: the sun contains everything. Just as a movie projector contains the entire movie until it is reflected out onto the screen. But the reflection on the screen is just that. It's a reflection of everything that's contained in the movie. So the sun is actually, we are all within the sun. Now, we could talk from an ascension standpoint that the sun's a portal to the higher realms, closer to source energy. So that makes a lot of sense, kind of aligns up with what Walter Russell's talking about, right? That resonates deeply with me. But when we are able to take the stillness of the light within the sun and start to separate out waves of light into this dark universe, we start to be able to manifest and experience that light. So this universe is a way for source consciousness, God consciousness, to be able to reflect out and experience God, okay, in separate ways. Again, it's just an illusion. It's not reality. It is just an electromagnetic way for our brains and our five senses to perceive information. Okay, so within the sun, we see ET craft coming out of the sun. They are manifesting from within the sun. They are fractally breaking off or separating off or extending out from that stillness of the light, that ocean that is still. They are becoming a wave on that ocean of light and extending out to where we can perceive them as their craft come in. Does that make sense? Resonates very deeply with me. Again, Walter Russell, this is just the tip of the iceberg with his writing. The funny thing is that his writing, it was so just brushed off by the scientific community. They wanted nothing to do with him. He was so advanced. And now, as we're undergoing this expansion of consciousness, we could really draw a lot of parallels to when we're talking about multidimensional, higher dimensions, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, all the way up to 12th, whatever dimensions, that energy coming forward. We could draw parallels to manifesting. We could draw parallels to using our charged intent to be able to bring forward the life that we desire. It's all tied together with these concepts that Walter Russell brings forward. So I'm going to dive more into this. I just started reading it again today. This is kind of just an intro video to that. I'm going to really get in. It's really, really fascinating. And I'm seeing it from a whole different level now, like I said, than I did when I first read it or listened to it. Actually, I think last time, a couple of years ago. Now I'm actually reading this material and it is just resonating deeply. So check it out. It's the Universal One. There's PDFs online. There's audio on YouTube as well. You can find, I think, audiobooks and things like that. And The Secret of Light by Walter Russell. Amazing, amazing stuff. If you're If you were led to my channel by Walter Russell, you were searching for information on him, definitely subscribe. We're going to talk more about this and others as well. And I'll probably have some people on at some point where we can get into some deeper discussions on the mechanics of all this and how it works. Amazing stuff, guys. Thank you.